I'm Alex Marlow. I'm the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News. I'm the host of the Alex Marlow Show podcast on the Salem News Network, and I'm in for Hugh today. It is a breaking news situation. My friend, my colleague at Salem, Charlie Kirk, has been shot. He was at an event at Utah Valley State University, and it is one of these situations where we have very little that is known at this time. Other than that, it looks very, very grim. It does not look good for Charlie, and it does not look good for the country. The fact that we have a country where this is possible is beggars belief. We've been here before many decades ago, but this would be a high-profile assassination if that's what it is, and if hopefully for the best, it is not. Hopefully this is something where we will get an update on his medical condition momentarily, and I will bring you all the latest on the show. I'll talk to you about my relationship with Charlie. I'll talk to you about his relationship with our colleagues here at Salem and the incredible good he does for this country and this movement. I'll tell you on a personal level, Charlie and I are in a number of chats together, and one of them yesterday, there was discussion about safety at this particular event. It's going to be a huge event. There's a lot of drama in Utah about Charlie's presence there because Charlie stands for things that offends people on the left, and he has become a real symbol of freedom, of free speech, of clarity in this country, and one of the real the representatives of the rightward shift of younger American voters that we're starting to see, particularly in young men, but also just young people across the board. He's been a friend of mine from really the start of his career in high school. He got his start writing for me at Breitbart News, where he put out a story that I recommended that he write up himself. Me and Joel Pollack, who was a senior editor for us at the time, the two of us decided that it'd be best for Charlie to take on the assignment by himself. And when he did, it blew up. It went everywhere, as so much of what Charlie does would do over the years. Got on Fox News, got elsewhere, and was getting the word out. And he was able to ride that momentum to creating Turning Point USA, the biggest grassroots organization in the country, particularly for young people, that did immeasurable good in helping Trump win re-election in 2024. And he's just a tireless worker. He has a commitment to be on campus for 100 hours every semester. And those are not easy hours. I will tell you, there is a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety, and there's a lot of personal risk that goes into these events. And I think a lot will change in terms of securities of these events and in terms of what free speech means in this country after this moment, because this is absolutely chilling what we're witnessing here. The fact that he does not even have the ability to speak without fear of assassination, without fear of getting shot. And I'll tell you that Charlie had those fears, but he kept going forward. He kept soldiering on and going to these campuses and going to these events, doing his best to have security help, but doing so still in a fearless way. Nothing is certain. And as we learned from what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania over a year ago, we learned that it only takes one bad actor and one mistake from whoever's in charge of security, be it Secret Service or elsewhere, for a breach like this to take place. We don't know much about the shooter at this time. There is video footage on X, the Everything app, that you might notice of a guy being arrested. He does not look like a student. He does not necessarily fit any of the classic, I would say, physical descriptions of what you might expect from an assassin. So that could be a mistake, and I'm not going to bring anything to the air that I don't think is true beyond a reasonable doubt. So we'll keep you posted on that as well as Charlie's condition as much as we can hear from it. I do have some, I would say, secondhand knowledge, so perhaps I'll be able to share some news with you on the show before others, but I'll be incredibly cautious to not go out to you with anything that I do not know to be true. So the condition does not look great from the video, which we will not be playing on the show. Of course, video will be everywhere, just as the nature of things. But this was an event that I think was particularly perilous. I think this was one where there was a massive crowd. I don't think Charlie had been on campus in a little bit, and he's been in the news so much, from South Park covering an event like this and satirizing it, to just 2 nights ago, Van Jones coming out and saying Charlie Kirk should be ashamed of himself for adding the racial component to the clearly racially charged murder in the Charlotte train. So one of these moments that we'll remember forever, and that is not a good thing for this country. Charlie is also a family man, and this is the first thing that I thought of. It's the first thing I thought of when I heard this news about 20 minutes ago before going on the air, is that Charlie's got small children, and he is someone who is an advocate for family formation, and he's someone who doesn't just get satisfaction out of work. He wants to live a godly life, and part of that, he believes, is having children and being able to share the American values, biblical values, conservative values with those children and raising them to be the next great generation. And this is someone who has a tireless enthusiasm for this country, a person who has a tireless work ethic. I'll tell you, I've been very fortunate to achieve quite a bit in my life. I've got to write best-selling books and lead an amazing newsroom at Breitbart News and get to be on air on shows like Hugh's and my own shows. But I'll tell you, I'm in awe of Charlie's work ethic. Only President Trump I've ever seen competes with it. And this is something that people fear because he's so determined. He has so much willpower. And he is such a major platform that he'll walk into any arena. He's big on TikTok, for goodness sake. He's not afraid of going anywhere. And that's one of the characteristics. It is, as Dennis Prager, our friend and colleague, says, the rarest of the great traits is bravery. The rarest of the best traits that you can have as a human being is bravery. And Charlie, it's physically brave to go on these campuses. And I'll tell you, I hosted events 15 years ago when I was at UC Berkeley campus, maybe on the verge of 20 years ago. And there's always fear that violence would erupt. There's always fear that the rowdy protesters that are so routine with the left would turn violent. We've seen it time and again. I was at an event with Charlie Kirk just last year at UC Davis, where I was accompanying him on the event, spending some time with him, as we have been known to work on a number of projects together, be it media and otherwise. And at the event, which was not nearly as packed of a house as this one, rowdy, violent protesters on the outside smashed into windows, smashed doors open, and there was a massive security presence. He has to drive around a motorcade and have full-time security and have people whisk him around. Why? Because he's advocating for Judeo-Christian values and constitutional values. And the fact that someone could represent those things while living a life of deep meaning and purpose, even outside of when he's doing his political activism, that person could be a target for assassins is unbelievable. The fact that he is unfairly criticized in the press so often, I think, will also be something that's discussed. But we will try to bring you all the latest in terms of what his physical condition is right now. But I will say this is going to be a painful show, but it'll be important for people to be together and to feel like there is a place to understand and try to begin to understand what's happening in this country at this moment. It is a violent time, and a lot of the violence is coming from the political left, which would be a complete shock if that's not exactly what this is. And we've seen this over the last couple of days in this country where the left has normalized violence. They've normalized crime. They've tried to do everything that they possibly can in order to they've tried to do everything they possibly can in order to try to minimize violent criminals, to try to get them on the streets, try to normalize our appetite for forgiving them. And we always knew this was possible. I was thinking about this because I just finished Selena Zito's book on Butler that she wrote about President Trump. But we still don't have answers, complete answers about what happened there. And if that bullet had been an inch closer to Trump's skull and Trump had died, then it would have been the most significant event in 100 years or 80 years, at least in this country. And it would have been something where we would have demanded answers. And I don't know if we could have handled the answers we would have got. I think that people would have been so deeply disturbed. But we were able to move on to some degree because of the nature that Trump survived. We need to revisit those things. We need to try to get people clarity in this country because you need to be able to be free to walk out, to speak, to represent conservatism, Judeo-Christian values, and to fight. And if Charlie is unable to do so because of the radical political environment that the left has got us accustomed, then there needs to be a lot of hell to pay. There really does. So what that means, we'll see and we'll discuss on the show. But for now, thoughts and prayers are encouraged and welcome. We're all thinking of Charlie here at Salem, the Hugh Hewitt Show. I do have some breaking news for you that I feel reasonably comfortable reporting. It's hard to know for certain in these things. I'm not in the room with Charlie, but the reports are that Charlie is alive at this time. He's lost a lot of blood, so hopefully that is the news that holds and gets better. But as of now, that is what I'm told from sources. They're very, very high up, let's put it that way. So I have that to offer you. It's not much reassurance, but it is a small silver lining as of this time. It would be the devastation level would go off the charts if I can't maintain these reports. But I will continue to try to bring you up to the minute from what I'm hearing and what I'm reading online as you go about your days. Do we have Mike, guys? We're going to bring in Mike Gallagher here in a second. But those of you just coming in to reset, Charlie Kirk was shot at an event at Utah Valley State University. This was a massive event. It was where he holds court on campus, answers all sorts of questions. He particularly likes to hear from the left. It gets a huge response. It's gotten a lot of national coverage. It was even recently satirized on South Park recently. And shots rung out. There is some very disturbing video online. It looks as though Charlie was hit in the neck. And at least one time, I don't know any, I've not seen a report to the contrary. He was whisked away very quickly. There is someone apparently in custody. We don't know anything about that individual, and we'll continue to give you updates on both Charlie's health and both what could have gone wrong to allow for this to happen. And then, of course, we'll take some time to reflect on what's happened in this country, where there has been a rush to demonize speech, to make speech violence. And we are so gone from the era of where sticks and stones can break my bones, but names can never hurt me, which is what was repeated constantly throughout my childhood, which wasn't all that long ago. And now we're in a scenario where words are considered violence and violence is excused. And we saw that so much earlier in this week with Van Jones, who called out Charlie, but also said that the stabber in the in the North Carolina train was hurting. It was hurt people. This man is hurting. And that's where his mind goes. And I think he's reflective of the left. I don't mean to pick on just him in this moment. He's just, so many people have said horrible things like that in the past, and so many people have said horrible things about Charlie in the past. But his is just the most recent. So don't think he's alone. He's emblematic, where people try to manufacture excuses for why people on the left are allowed to commit acts of violence because that is seen as a resistance. I'll tell you, one of my common refrains, as I point out when I was on the UC Berkeley campus, which was occasionally violent when a conservative speaker would come to campus. Recall 10 years or so ago when Milo Yiannopoulos tried to give a speech and they burned down the whole town. It was even wall-to-wall coverage on CNN. Even CNN was forced to cover it. That there was this normalization that conservative speech is violence and liberal violence is protected speech. And that's the era that we need to exit immediately. It's gotten completely out of control. And this is the week where it should be cemented in people, but it really should have been cemented in Butler, where there are so many people who rushed to the keyboard to type in that it was just one guy, just one crazy guy, Thomas Matthew Crooks. He's the only guy who did it. We have no idea what he was reading, what he was thinking, what sort of inputs went into a guy who's capable of that, or why not enough was done to protect President Trump. You think of this for example after example in recent memory, where you see a element of left-wing violence and people try to come after the way conservatives are portraying it. Think of any of these transgender shooters that are taking place, where there's a rush to try to portray, as they did with Gavin Newsom, making fun of the children, essentially mocking the children who are praying, as a trans shooter tried to gun down many of them in a Minnesota church just a couple of weeks ago. The element where our media feels as though they need to come up with a justification for brutal acts of demonic violence against people who are praying, against people who are giving a speech on a campus. We used to be a much more resilient people, where we used to be able to stand up to ideas, to bad ideas. We used to be able to try to defend ourselves. We used to be able to use our speech to express our viewpoint and not have to attack people physically because you don't like what they have to say or how they're praying. And yet our establishment media, after this happens, they go out and they portray it as though there's some level of excuse. Maybe the victim is really the attacker. The attacker is the victim. Van Jones portrayed the attacker as the victim in North Carolina. Gavin Newsom portrays the attacker as the victim in Minnesota. Now, what will happen here? Will we see more of the same, or will people finally come to their senses and say that that's not appropriate? Charlie stands for a happy warrior ethos that I think Andrew Breitbart would have been very proud of. I don't think Charlie got to know Andrew. He kind of came on board with us right after Andrew passed away. But he always has a smile. He's always encouraging. He really doesn't like even the verbal fisticuffs unless it's absolutely necessary. He tries to present arguments from a point of clarity, from a point of debate, a genuine debater. That's what he is. He's not someone who's here just to throw bombs. That's not the point. Figuratively speaking, of course. And to be with him, you can't help but feel inspired about what to do with your life. And that's what he's all about. He's exciting to be around because of that. And that, I think, is really the threat that he has to the left. It's not that what he says is completely unique, or that people haven't said it before, or that a energetic, young, good-looking guy could say stuff. We've had that. But it's his infectious love of country, love of God, and his fearlessness and his ability to present it, to go into the belly of the beast, to go to these campuses, to go to where the left resides and say, I will take all of you on, and you guys come and beat me. Even if that means I don't have a good day and it goes viral online and people make fun of me. It's all good. It's all good. It's all what this country was essentially supposed to be all about. That's why the First Amendment is the First Amendment. So I'll be very eager to get details here, and hopefully I'll have some for you coming up momentarily. We're also going to bring in a cadre of guests, our colleagues on Salem. I'll have some breaking news reports to you from my Breitbart newsroom, which is, of course, everyone working maniacally to try to get details. And I'll try to bring you as much of the information as we can, as well as get any reflections that you might have on Charlie. I've got an email address, aloha@alexmarlow.com. If you send me an email, I'll try to read some of the best ones on the air, get some of your participation as well, and try to get some of your thoughts. I think it's important to commune as a country, as a movement. We're under attack in so many different ways right now. This is a clear example of them. It is now time to stand up to the bad guys and to actually deal with some of these problems head on and not talk around them. And that's what we're going to do today. Updates on the condition of my friend Charlie Kirk, who was shot today at a Utah Valley State University speaking event, an event that I'll tell you that I correspond with Charlie on a daily basis. And this is one, Utah Valley University is precise on that. This was one where there was a level of insecurity about the intensity of some of the attacks on him in the public space, and whether or not this was going to be as safe of an event as it needed to be. And it turned out to be the least safe event. Charlie was shot today in the neck, and I am able to report that he is alive at this time, according to my sources. Obviously, I'm on the radio here, so it's not a first-hand account, but it's a second-hand account, and I feel confident enough with my sources here, and I think this is really, you can't say it's good news, but it is not the worst news as of now. Mike Gallagher is with me, our colleague on Salem. Mike, thank you for jumping on in a moment. It's really important. You have the floor, my friend.
Well, Alex, I know you speak with Charlie regularly, as we all do. He's a Salem colleague and friend. The overwhelming sentiment right now is one of prayer. People from all over the world are praying that he'll recover from this monstrous act. I don't think it's any secret that he needed security, and he had a lot of strong, brave people around him to try to protect him from what we're seeing right now is this horrible, horrible event. You can't understate the role that Charlie plays in the political and cultural landscape in America. Already the president has responded. The president's been briefed. Caroline Leavitt, as you know, has issued a statement saying that we are all praying for Charlie. But look, this is the world we're in. We go from talking daily about a horrific killing of a young woman on a light rail train in Charlotte to now the unthinkable. The idea that Charlie Kirk himself was shot. Reports are that, as you know, the suspect is in custody. The shot was reportedly fired from about 200 yards away in a building from the speaker, from Charlie. There were, as you pointed out, reportedly no security checkpoints at this event, which, of course, is going to be scrutinized considering what has unfolded. But just one shot, one pop. Charlie was seen going down. It has not been confirmed yet what hospital he was taken to, and there are unconfirmed reports that he is in critical condition right now. So, look, Alex, all of us are shook. We're all just shaken to the core because this is unimaginable, and yet in many ways, some would say it's the atmosphere we're in right now. The left is increasingly relying on violence and embracing acts of violence toward people that they disagree with, and it just seems incredible to me, Alex, that our own Charlie Kirk has been the victim now of this kind of unspeakable evil.
Mike, when did you first come into contact with Charlie?
Years ago. I mean, Charlie's a radio lover, and Charlie,
yes, that's right,
affectionately called me one of the old men that he loved listening to. Of course, he grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh with his parents in Chicago. Charlie's story is worthy of any, life story that you could chronicle in a book or a movie. He came up with Turning Point USA in his parents' garage. But he has always been a self-described radio guy at heart. So Charlie frequently texts me during the show because whatever part of the country he's in, he might be listening to my show on his way in to do his show. And I lean on Charlie's commentary and his content a lot, like I know you do, like we all do,
sure.
Because Charlie's a trailblazer. He's gone into the proverbial zeitgeist. You can't read now an article in the New York Times or the AP or the Wall Street Journal anywhere where Charlie, Axios comes to mind, where Charlie is routinely cited as one of the most prominent voices of conservatism in the country. He and Turning Point got Donald Trump elected. If you don't have millions and millions of doors knocked on, and the message of faith and family and freedom that Turning Point advances, one could say that we'd be sitting right now with President Kamala Harris. And so, Charlie is a beloved husband, father, a mentor to many, and certainly a very prominent figure in the conservative movement, maybe the most prominent figure, which is what makes this act even all the more devastating.
Well said, Mike. Hang with me. When we come back, I'm going to ask you, is this a moment where we all are going to cower in fear, or is this a moment where we're going to fight back? I got a feeling how you'll answer that one, but what does fighting back look like in this moment of left-wing ultraviolence? We are bringing breaking news on Charlie Kirk, who was shot at Utah Valley University today. We are to believe that he is alive, but in critical condition, lost a lot of blood, and I will continue to give you any health updates that we have, and we continue to try to unpack what this all means. We've been seeing a normalization of violent rhetoric by prominent left-wing officials. Recently, Jasmine Crockett is the latest to call for people to get punched if they're conservatives, but Kamala Harris backing Black Lives Matter protesters over the years. Why Nancy Pelosi calling for uprisings, in Chuck Schumer saying that there'll be a price to pay and they're going to reap the whirlwind over the Supreme Court decisions of the past. Even Joe Biden, consistent violent rhetoric over the years. And then we've continued to see a rash of violence that has taken place, of course, most notably the 2 attempted assassination attempts of Donald Trump, the one that he narrowly survived in Butler, Pennsylvania, leading up to another assassination attempt, it appears, against my good friend and our colleague at Salem, Charlie Kirk, a man I've known since he was a teenager, and a massive force, not just in American politics, but in particular with younger American voters who are shifting to the right. He's a constant presence in their life thanks to his massive social media footprint, Turning Point USA, his campus activism, his TikTok presence. All of this is reaching younger people, and this was clearly an attempt to take him off of the battlefield. So what do we do about this? My colleague Mike Gallagher is with me, who hosts an incredible morning show here on all the Salem stations and on the Salem News Channel. Mike, it's really nice to have your wisdom at a moment like this. We need some clarity here. What is the appropriate response?
Well, first of all, let me just reiterate something that I was thinking as I was driving in here about you personally and your friendship with Charlie and your role as a young, passionate patriot. The Charlie Kirks and the Alex Marlows of the world are needed now more than ever. Millions of Americans are turning to young, vibrant, enthusiastic, wise people like you guys. All of us, I think, have a role to play, but it's kind of joyful to hand the torch to younger people who own this podcast space like you and Charlie do, who own the digital space, who are everywhere, who are ubiquitous. Charlie really has been somebody who's a pioneer of reaching out to millions and millions of young people who found out there's a better way than the failed policies of the left, and recognize that there is a better way. There's a brighter way. And so, it's funny, Alex, as we look at this as a news story, this hits real hard for all of us, because all of us who work with Charlie and know him, all I'm thinking about is his recovery. I know you are too. We can go through all the obligatory news aspects of this story. The shooting suspect is in custody. There were reports that witnesses saw Charlie hit, saw him struck in the neck, as you said to have lost a lot of blood. And it's funny because I think about what we would ordinarily say as talk show hosts, and I've been at this a long time. This is my 5th decade at this. I think about what the right thing is to say, and all I can think to say is to echo what Vice President J.D. Vance moments ago said, what President Trump has said, and that is the nation needs to pray for Charlie. The nation needs to pray for his wife. The nation needs to pray for his family, for his many loved ones, and his millions of supporters all over the country. I suppose, Alex, to your question of where do we go from here, maybe this will be a turning point where the country wakes up and says violence is not going to solve anything. Violence to try to silence opposition is going to be utterly rejected. And I know Charlie would want all of us to continue to echo the warrior theme of one that President Trump did when he was shot, and that was to stand up bloodied and raise his fist in the air and say, fight, fight, fight. So if the angry, violent lunatics of our society believe that a bullet is going to silence a movement, it's not. If they think a bullet is going to silence the passion and the spirit and the intensity of what so many of us represent on the airwaves and what people represent in the streets and what politicians represent in their offices and in Washington, D.C. and in state legislatures and mayor's officers and offices and governor, it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. In fact, we're going to be galvanized. So like you said, going into the break, Alex, you know the answer. The answer is we're going to be more determined than ever to let our voices be heard, and we cannot be cowed into submission or fear by these violent lunatics who think that putting a bullet or a knife into somebody who they disagree with is going to be an answer, because it's not, and that is going to be utterly rejected by the United States of America.
Yeah, maybe this will be a turning point. Of all the great things you said, Mike, that would be my highest hope, and I think it would be Charlie's as well. And hopefully we'll get a chance to hear from him one day soon. The president did put out on Truth Social, we must all pray for Charlie Kirk, who's been shot. A great guy from top to bottom. God bless him. And it just really, there's something else there, Mike, that I touched on in my opening about how Charlie does have a family. He has children. He's got a wife. He's got the rest of his life in front of him where he'll be immensely powerful should he survive this, and it will get to have a lot of joy and privileges that he's earned through his hard work. And to have that deprived of him because someone doesn't like some of the things that he stands for or has to say, that's not something that this country is all about. It's not what we're supposed to be all about. It's supposed to be the opposite. We're supposed to be, the American dream is supposed to be, we get to choose our own adventure there. And if it becomes that you distinguish yourself as a commentator, as someone who brings news and analysis and entertainment and debate and politics to a vast, vast, vast audience, then shouldn't that be your right? And is that not acceptable to the left in this country at this time?
And Alex, let's hope that his critics, his most vociferous critics, will stand up and denounce this.
Yeah.
Let's hope and pray that even the people who disagree with him ideologically will have the integrity and the guts and the gumption to stand up and condemn this awful atrocity. And that will go a long way towards trying to heal the country. Because right now, Alex, country's going to be torn apart by this. It's a very big deal. That's for sure.
Mike Gallagher shows 9 a.m. to noon Eastern, MikeOnline.com, and on the Salem News Channel every day. Mike is terrific, as you guys all know. If you're listening to this show, you know how great Mike is. Thank you, Mike, for the time and the wisdom. Bringing you breaking news today on the Hugh Hewitt Show with me, Alex Marlowe. A friend of mine, Charlie Kirk, who is also a colleague here on the Salem News Channel, Salem Podcast Network, Salem Radio Network, everything Salem. He's been here, and he's been a friend of mine for well over a decade, worked closely on many things. He's in critical condition, as we are told at the moment, after being shot at a Utah Valley University event, an event that there was some trepidation about going to for Charlie. And hopefully I'll have better news to report later on in the show. But if he lives, it is a miracle. It is a very similar situation to what we saw with President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. I believe Charlie's injuries are going to prove to be more grave than that. But we're going to try to bring you all the latest throughout the show, but also bring in some friends and colleagues. Chris DeGaulle is with me now. Chris, just briefly, when did you first come into contact with Charlie?
Well, gosh, my first meeting with Charlie was actually at a Turning Point event not too terribly long ago down in Georgia. Lucas Miles, as you know, is now his chief at Turning Point Faith, and I was invited to come speak on a panel about that. So I've only known Charlie really in a brief capacity, of course, as a colleague, as you mentioned here, on the Salem Radio Network, the Salem News Channel, and in media. But I know Charlie is, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think to all of us at Salem, he is the crown jewel. He is, many people have believed him to be the new national voice of a movement, much like Rush Limbaugh. And so this is a figure, Alex, I don't have to tell you, and I know you've been speaking of it so well today with Mike Gallagher and others, that this is one of the most effective communicators in modern history for the conservative cause. But more importantly, he is an effective messenger for Christ. And I hope that everyone understands that that's what this is. This is a man who was targeted by Satan himself, by evil himself. And when you stand for Jesus Christ and when you stand for the truth of Christ, you will be hated and Satan will writhe. But I can assure everyone watching today, Alex, and listening today, I can assure everyone, if this lunatic or any other lunatic thinks that they will stop and silence the truth of Christ and the truth that we know to be true, if they think they're going to silence us with a gunshot or a bullet, President Trump said it best in Butler, I am certain, I'm going to say when Charlie Kirk comes out of this, he's going to say the same thing President Trump did, fight, fight, fight. My resolve is greater than ever before that we continue to speak and not let these thugs intimidate us into thinking this is the new way forward for this country. I refuse to accept it. And Alex, I'm sorry. I know we're all very emotional about it today, but
yeah, and that's appropriate. It is something for me. The first thing I thought of as a friend of Charlie's was my family and my own children, and what it would be like if it was me up there. And he's so brave to do this over and over again, dozens of times a year, to go up there and to put himself on the line, because he is not just a vehicle for conservative values, but you're correct to say Christian values. And that is something that is always going to offend the worst people in the world and maybe beyond this world. Chris DeGaulle, hang with me after the break. We have a lot to talk about here about what this means. And I'm going to get some breaking news plus media clips who continue to disgrace themselves even in the most important moment for breaking news. They can't help themselves. And we are closely tracking the devastating news that Charlie Kirk was shot on a Utah campus earlier today at an event where he holds court and he tries to talk to young people about conservatism, about Judeo-Christian values. The security of this event was, what I'm told, not sufficient, not adequate. America's college campuses are not safe. They're places of violence for people who have Judeo-Christian and conservative ideas. They have been for a long time, and this is the worst incident that we've seen in some time. I'm getting reports from my sources close to Charlie and people who are high in the U.S. government about his condition. I'll continue to bring you those in the show as I have news, but he is in critical condition, and at this time it is truly not, this is one where you must be praying as hard as you can right now. There is no other way to put it, that this is deeply, deeply on the edge, and it's not something that it brings me, it is painful to report. Charlie and I have been friends for over a decade, and I will continue to try to honor what he stood for in today's show, as well as give you any reports in the news. We'll also later on talk about how they're tracking things on establishment media outlets, places like MSNBC, places that are completely unequipped to inform the public at all at this time about people like Charlie. They've never understood him. They've never bothered to understand him. They've just used him as a pincushion to try to attack him and foster a climate of violence, which has increasingly become a real thing in the United States of America. Charlie, of course, is the founder of Turning Point USA, my colleague on the Salem News Channel, and is, as Chris DeGaulle, who I'll bring back in a moment, said, is sort of the crown jewel of Salem. He's not just a aspiring Rush Limbaugh, he's also one of our most powerful activists, which even goes beyond that. So it's even beyond talk radio. It's beyond social media. He is one of the people who has forged a relationship with President Trump because he is one of the conduits to the youth vote, to get people who are young involved in the conservative movement. As the cliche goes, the young people are our future. They're also our present, and this is the country we are trying to conserve for them. Charlie has been the most tireless person in my age group. I'm a few years older than he is, and trying to bring those values and messages to the public. It is a marvel to watch him work, and all we can do is hope and pray for the best and just get up and fight when all the dust settles. Chris DeGaulle, my colleague on Salem, is here. He hosts the early morning show. Chris, it's 6 to 9, right? I always catch it on podcast, right? 6 to 9 Eastern time.
6 to 9 Eastern every day.
3 to 6 where I'm at in the West Coast and on the Salem News Channel. He does a beautiful job, I think, connecting some of the connective tissue between conservatism and as well as Christianity. And speak to this, because this was a very profound thing you introduced at the end of the last hour. I wanted you to opine on this a little more, how Charlie isn't just about conservative values. He's about bringing the message of God to our campuses, which really need it.
Yes, and we have seen, Alex, now multiple events like this where Christian schools have been targeted by trans activists, and we don't know yet who this suspect in custody is. We have no idea, but I can bet you dollars to donuts when we find out who he is. It's not just that Charlie is a great conservative. Charlie is a man of deep, abiding faith. I mentioned that I don't know him like you do. I really don't know Charlie very well at all. I know him professionally. I've had very limited interaction with him personally. So my deepest sympathies to you and those of you who have an intimate friendship with him, certainly to his wife, his fairly new wife, as I understand it, and a new child. Charlie was a light for Christ. And when you are a light for Christ, you are the biggest target, really, ultimately. And here's what I know. Here's what I think I know. I think I can say this about Charlie without really knowing the man at all. Because I know he has a deep, abiding faith in the Lord, I know that's what allows him to go out into places like this, and probably his wife. I am sure they have had conversations. I'm almost certain they've had conversations about, are you in danger? And I'm sure there's been security discussions many a time before today about Charlie putting himself in harm's way in speaking the truth and standing up and being a bold light, not just for politics, but again, for the faith. And I know that Charlie goes out there unapologetically and unafraid. And when you have the truth of Christ in your heart, as Charlie does, I know he was not afraid today. And whatever his health status is at the moment, I know he does not fear. And I know if God forbid the very worst outcome today should happen, I know Charlie knows exactly where he's going. And the truth will win the day, Alex. That's the thing. And I posted this on social media today. The truth will win. You can try to censor. You can try to jail. You can try to assassinate. You will not silence the truth. You won't silence the truth of the Word of God. And you will not silence those of us, people like Alex Marlowe, people like Hugh Hewitt, people like Mike Gallagher, people like Charlie Kirk and his colleagues, and certainly this fathead talk show host. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going to shut us up or shut us down. If you think you can intimidate or kill or jail or break us to keep us from sharing the truth, be that political truth or be that our Christian faith, our Judeo-Christian values, it won't work. There aren't enough bullets. And so, Alex, I just stand resolute today knowing what Charlie stands on based on what I know about him through what I've heard and listened to. Again, my invitation to his Turning Point Faith event, it was an honor to be a small part of it. This was not a man who just stood up and argued with kids on a college campus.
No.
This is a man who hosted people who led houses of worship all over the country and
That's
actually had the boldness to look at pastors and say, you need to speak the word of God. You need to stand on the word of God. You need to lead your churches by the word of God. That's bold. I don't know anybody in the modern era who both speaks to politics but also speaks to church leaders and says, have a spine and stand on the word. That's who Charlie Kirk is, no matter what the outcome of today may bring.
I spent some time with Charlie when he would speak at church groups, and it was always packed houses, and he was so fluent, and through all of his spare time dealing with politics and activism, he was able to understand the Bible at a completely deep level, and he really did try to live it. Thus, his insistence on that young men should form families, and him abiding by that himself, and him trying to, despite his busyness, that seeing purpose in the divine and not just purpose in politics. And the politics is at its best is perhaps a way for us to commune with the divine on some level if we can only assure our people that there is a working and functional politics in this country, and there clearly isn't at this time, if this is the case. There is a man in custody, Chris, that we've seen, and I won't show footage yet at this time, but I will let the producers know if we need to put something up. But not the type of person who has any business being on a college campus. I don't know what he's doing there and why he was unaware to people. We'll understand this as time goes on. But the pattern of violence and the normalization of it takes place on our press constantly. We've got some clips here, and it's so ghoulish to play these, but we have to. This is what's going on over on MSNBC. Let's play cut 21, please. This is Matthew Dowd speaking.
Which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt,
and that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Turning Point USA has confirmed that he was shot. And there are a number of
he invited it on himself. Did he invite it on his wife and children? Is that also what he invited, Chris?
Yeah. It's hard not to get angry, irresponsibly angry, and stay FCC compliant, as our friend Kirk Schlichter says. The very idea that words warrant bullets. This is what Matthew Dowd just said. This is what the American left says. If you say words we don't like, you're deserving of a bullet to the chest or head. Yeah. And I don't know what we do as a country with that. I don't know how you come back from that.
Could he say that to Charlie's children, to their face? If you can't, then you can't say it on a camera. A devastating day for America, as well as all of us at Salem News Channel. Charlie Kirk is a friend and a colleague of ours. I will note that this video of a alleged suspect may not be the actual shooter. It might just be a crazy person on campus. So, Dwayne, it's very good that we didn't report that. We're trying to get the latest on the condition of Charlie Kirk. The news that I'm getting through back channels is not good. As you can imagine, any of you have seen the footage that Charlie was shot in the neck at a Utah Valley University event on campus, and the reports was from some distance. And Charlie's been the subject of a number of verbal online attacks. There's been physical violence at his events in the past. I've witnessed it personally, but never anything like this. And this is a moment where America prays not just for Charlie and his family and his children, but our country. Matt Boyle is on the line with me. He's our Washington bureau chief. Matt, let's start with the reporting. What do you know?
Well, the speaker, first off, I want to just say, I don't want to be the one to break this news, but the Speaker of the State House of Utah has said that Charlie Kirk has died, and I don't have a reason to believe that is not accurate. So I think that is correct based off of what my sources are saying, and just a terrible moment for the conservative movement, for the nation, for President Trump's supporters, for all Americans, frankly, and just
So we're going off of. I'm seeing this online on social media. This is a tweet from the Utah Speaker of the House. Also seeing John Solomon's Just the News reporting it as well. I imagine that no one from Just the News is with Charlie, so I'm guessing that he's getting that from someone. And it's such a moment of information. It's just so hard to know what's true. But you believe, Matt, that the sourcing is solid there.
I think so. Yeah. So I don't have a reason to disbelieve it, and my own sources are saying the same thing. So I don't want to be the one confirming it, but it's a terrible story to confirm. But so I'm not going to dissuade you from that.
Unbelievable. Hard to process it. It's hard to process it, especially in a moment where there's so few trustworthy people in the media to even discuss these things, much less report on it factually. There are also reports that the suspect is not in custody, and you see a moment that could be a watershed moment for the country. It feels like, unfortunately, Matt, we've been building towards something like this. The left has been normalizing violence in our cities. We've seen it this year. Has been a law and order discussion every day about how the rhetoric from the left is excusing violent criminals, portraying them as victims, and then you see the attacks on people like Charlie, someone who stands up for conservative values on campus and on the airwaves. What are we to make of this moment in this country?
Look, Charlie Kirk is a titan of the conservative movement. It's still hard for me to process this, but like a titan of the conservative movement. I don't think that we would be in a place where we are as a conservative movement without him. So it's just I'm shocked here, right? Like, you're right. The radical left is out of control. We're seeing it right now, right? Like the establishment media, MSNBC, CNN, they're being totally ridiculous right now. They're behaving as though you would expect. We're seeing statements from a number of possible 2024 Democrat contenders rushing out to condemn it. But people like Gavin Newsom, I mean, just a few weeks ago, he was out there calling for violence against Republicans, right? He was going to say he was going to go punch Republicans in the face, right? Like this needs to stop now. Like, and so the behavior of and criminality of the Democrat Party and the radical left at this point in our nation, and I say Democrat Party, I mean, yeah, like frankly, the Democrat Party condones this nonsense. Right. I mean, we're seeing it. You saw the incident in North Carolina earlier this week. The fact is that this is just totally ridiculous. It's out of control. It needs to stop. In society, we've got to heal as a nation. And so, I'm hoping that all the people and all the reports out there that this is taking the turn for the absolute worst are not true. But again, I just don't have a reason to believe that they are. So I believe that they are true. So
I'm trying to confirm with our own sources the news the news is reporting, which is John Solomon's outfit, suggesting that Charlie Kirk is dead. There is a tweet from the Speaker of Utah. Again, I don't know if this is 100% able to confirm, and I want to clarify that to the audience. But I do know that those people online, that's what's being shared, as well as that the initial lunatic who is seen claiming that he shot Charlie was not necessarily the actual shooter. So it is a deeply chaotic environment. We'll keep trying to give you the latest, as well as keeping track of the media reactions, which have been utterly disgusting and ghoulish. And will only continue to create this climate of violence. I don't understand how the left can look at themselves in the mirror after this. They've been egging on their most violent criminals, excusing them, letting them on the streets, trying to minimize, act as though they are the victims over and over again. The stabber in Charlotte, he's the victim. The trans shooter in Minnesota, he's the victim. They're all the victims. They're all the victims of us, the oppressor. And they see Charlie as the oppressor. That's how they saw him. And they'll act like we don't know the motivation. We'll act like this person acted alone. This person, whoever it is, didn't act alone. This person is someone who had input, and that input was from our media, from our culture that has normalized violent rhetoric towards conservatives and violence towards conservatives, especially President Trump. Matt, how do you compare this event to what happened in Butler a year ago?
It's just a continuation of the same, right? Like, I mean, again, we just continue to see the radical left and Democrat Party. Look, it's hard for me to as a journalist here, point out that an entire political party in America is rotten, but that's where we are. The Democrat Party is rotten, right? Like there are major problems here. Like they are the party of criminality. Right. Like, so it's not like you have minor disagreements between the two parties anymore. There are major cultural and societal norms that are different between them two. The Republicans are the party of law and order. The Democrats are condoning this behavior, right? Like they're condoning criminality across from coast to coast. We see it every day. I saw Democrat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett out there saying, oh, the criminals are just trying to survive. Like, this is not normal. We cannot become a society where this is acceptable, right? Murder should be zero, right? There should be zero murders in America. There should be zero rapes in America, right? Like, this is not an acceptable situation to say, oh, well, okay, like this many is okay. Like,
That's correct.
that's not
If
normal,
if
right? Like,
if the news that's being shared online is true, we'll grieve and we'll mourn, but we won't forget, and the fight will get even more intense. The tolerance of the evil people who are dominating left-wing politics and discussion in this country will be non-existent. There will be a total reckoning that takes place. What that looks like, that will play out over time, but this has got to be a turning point for this country. Thanks, Matt Boyle, for the report. Most devastating time I've ever been behind a microphone. I was blessed to broadcast on Sirius XM for 7 years, and for about the last year I've been on the Salem Podcast Network. Filled in for my friend Charlie Kirk a number of times, who got his start writing for Breitbart News. Reports online is that he has passed away. I have not confirmed those personally. When I feel like the sourcing is solid, I'll bring that to your attention again. But there were assorted tweets online suggesting that he was shot and killed today at an event on campus in Utah, where he was shot in the neck. Anyone who has seen the video online, I don't recommend it. It looked terrible. It looked significantly worse than other comparable events that we've seen in recent years. I don't think I need to fill in the gaps there. These events are very meaningful in terms of being able to reach younger people where they are, which is on the campuses, which have been left-wing hellholes in this country in many ways. Of course, there is some good that's done there, but overall, they've become petri dishes for left-wing activism, and the activism, I think, recruits younger people who grow up in normal American families, and they go to these campuses, and they're not safe there, and they're not safe particularly if they're a conservative and they want to be outspoken. So clearly not enough was done in terms of security. We will learn more about that as time goes on as well. But at the moment, I can't stop thinking about Charlie and his family, his movement, and the life that he would lead should he survive this, or would have led if he does not. It's one of those moments where surely words cannot articulate how significant of an event this would be for this country. And can this be a turning point? Can this be a moment where America stands up to the left-wing violence, stands up to the radicalization of our campuses, and to this increasing pull within our left-wing establishment and in our left-wing media to normalize this type of behavior in our streets? Chris DeGaulle is back with me, correct, guys? My colleague on Salem. Chris has been very profound with me earlier in the broadcast. And Chris, thank you for hanging on, breaking news moments. It's always nice to have a stable of people you can confide in and the audience can trust. Any reflections in the last 30 minutes or so since we spoke?
Matthew 5:10 through 12. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. John 15:18 through 20. If the world hate you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. And 2 Timothy 3:12. Yea, and all that will live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. I say again, and all I can do at this point in time, Alex, and I don't mean to preach, I'm no theologian. I have to lean into my faith, as I know Charlie's family must be. I did not know Charlie personally, but I know him to be a man of profound faith. And I know he knows, I hate to speak in past tense. I heard what you reported, and I don't know whether that's true or not, but whether it is or whether it isn't, he's won either way, and he knows that. And we Christians know that. And so I'm confident where Charlie is right now. What I'm not confident in is where we are as a country right now, as you've so well said. I don't know, as a talk show host for the last 25 years, what it means, where we've come in the country when words, just speech. We're hearing people on cable news say our speech virtually justifies people picking up guns and shooting at us for things that we say that they may not like. And when we've reached that place, as you and I were just talking a while ago, when you've reached that place, it's a point of no return. I grapple with trying to figure out why, whether it's President Trump or whether it's Charlie Kirk or whether it's Alex Marlow or our show. I don't want to sound too self-aggrandizing, but we don't mean any harm to anyone. We're not trying to hurt anyone. Charlie was certainly not out trying to hurt anyone.
No.
Charlie was out spreading the word of God. Charlie was out spreading the word of individualism. He was encouraging people to lead their lives. He was telling them that they were created in the image of God. You're not a mistake. I read in a poll today that there are people in Gen Z that are more anxious, just doubled over with anxiety and anxiousness like never before. And people like Charlie are telling them, you're good, man. You're good. It's all good. You're perfect. You're created in the image of God. Go out and lead your life. Have a family. Don't be anxious. The left has filled people with such rage and anger and antipathy and anxiousness. They know nothing to do but pick up a firearm, Alex. It's lunacy. It's lunacy.
This has been fomented. It's been bubbling towards this moment. We nearly had a similar one a year ago. Breaks my heart to say it, but I'm in pain for my country today that this could happen in the United States of America. I'm Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, in for Hugh today on this devastating news day. There are reports that are all over the map. Real America's Voice, which airs Charlie Kirk's show, has said that he is dead and has passed away at the age of 31 years old. This is not what I would regard as a hard confirmation. I just want to share with you, the audience, what I'm reading and what's being sent to me at this time, and as soon as I know anything more definitive, I will make that perfectly clear to the audience. But whether we are speaking in the past or present tense, Charlie Kirk is a giant. He'll have inspired millions of people, and this is a very dark day in the United States of America. Kurt Schlichter is on, an old friend of mine, a friend of Andrew Breitbart's. And Kurt, I can't help but think that this is the most devastating news I've had since the passing of Andrew Breitbart, which was under completely different circumstances. But I can't help but feel some deja vu.
Yeah, Alex. God, I'm sorry to be back with you under these circumstances. But, we've been through something like this before, but not like this. If he really is gone, and there are contradictory reports out there, this is going to have ripples through our politics and our culture and our society that I don't think we're anywhere near able to predict. This is an attack on everything we believe in as a country. The right to speak freely, the right to chart your own course, the right to have the liberty to say what you think no matter what other people think. And somebody decided that Charlie Kirk couldn't do that and put a bullet in it. And I'm so angry. I can barely express. And look, I knew Charlie Kirk a little bit. The last text he sent me was thanking me for asking him to come on a show I was guest hosting. He couldn't do it, but he thanked me for reaching out and asked. That's the kind of guy he was. A patriot, or is, God, please, is. A patriot, an American legend. I'm rarely at a loss for words, but I am now. At least words I can say on the air.
I think, Kurt, you channel what all of us are feeling at this moment. And it feels like to have someone try to assassinate you and perhaps assassinate you for speech, for speaking about God, for speaking about our Constitution, for speaking about how to preserve the Republic, specifically to have that be the specific reason. This goes beyond politics. It transcends what it means to have political violence that we've known of this country in the past several decades. And yet we're seeing this now as a pattern. This is an emerging pattern from the left. And your point about how we have no idea where this is going to go is so resonant and so important, because I will tell you, I don't know as well. And I don't know what the appropriate response is to this, especially when you see some of the reactions online, some of the reactions on MSNBC, which I'll play later on in the show. Fox News now is reporting that Charlie Kirk has passed away. So, and the Washington Post has as well. This is the most, God rest his soul. Pray for his family. Pray for his children.
Look, now it falls on us to act. And I'll tell you, I'm no pacifist. I'm a soldier. Yes. Violence has a place. It doesn't have a place here. Don't go out and hurt somebody. Don't go out and murder somebody because they disagree with you. That's not the right thing to do. It's not the smart thing to do. It's not an acceptable thing to do. You're not doing it in Charlie's name. Charlie wouldn't want you to do that.
No, he wouldn't.
But thankfully, we have the control of federal law enforcement, and we can seek out the wrongdoers, because there are wrongdoers out there. It may have been just one lunatic who pulled the trigger, but there are other people behind it, and other people who are systematically subverting our country outside of their constitutional right to speak freely and to petition for the redress of grievances and to exercise the right of the free press. And that's how we do it. We don't abandon the Constitution today. We double down on our Constitution. We don't frame anybody. We don't lie. We don't cheat. We don't go hurt people because we're hurting. We're not animals. We're not them. No, we're Americans. And our Constitution has a remedy for what happened today. And if you have any respect for Charlie Kirk and what he stood for and what he was murdered for, you will double down on our Constitution. You will back up Cash Patel, Pam Bondi, Harmeet Dillon, Dan Bongino, and all the rest of the great Americans out there who are going to find the people who did this and find the people who may do this again and bring them to justice under our Constitution. That's what you're going to do if you respect and honor Charlie Kirk's memory.
Very strongly and well put, Kurt Schlichter. This is where we lean on law and order. We don't run from it. We run towards it. And this is what President Trump was put here to do, to deal with this, to deal with these people who've taken over our country, who are controlling too much of our dialogue, who are controlling too much of our streets, controlling so much of our lawfare apparatus. All of these people who have tried to invent new laws to come after Trump and to go around laws if they feel like there is a threat to them. And Charlie was a threat to them because he was carrying a profound message, a message about this Constitution, a message about our founding documents, a message about conservatism, about family structure, about God, about Jesus Christ. All of these things were inherent to who Charlie was, and he did it with a smile. I'll say that my last messages from Charlie were last night. He was thanking a small team of us who had his back after Van Jones had said he should be ashamed of himself for saying the obvious things about the murder in Charlotte, in the Charlotte Transit. That's who Charlie was. He was very grateful to the people who would ride with him into battle. R.I.P. Charlie, we love you. Hugh Hewitt's tweeted, "Eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord, and may perpetual light shine upon him. May he rest in peace. Amen. Every murder is grievous, but I've never had a friend and colleague murdered before. For Charlie to have been assassinated for his beliefs and for attempting to persuade college kids of their truth is sickening beyond words. Charlie has been doing his work since 2012 in classrooms large and small. In the beginning, they were small. He worked hard at learning more every day, was unfailingly kind and generous to colleagues, and would not tolerate hate in his organization. So deeply grieving for his family, friends, and the United States." Beautiful message from Hugh. President Trump has sent out the following message on Truth Social. "The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you." He accomplished so much in such a short amount of time. And now, the same way that our founder of Breitbart News, Andrew Breitbart, accomplished so much and yet somehow managed, I believe, to influence even more people after his passing, that has to be the legacy that we fight for Charlie. Those of us who get behind a microphone, those of us who might want to sign up someone to vote, those of us who might want to reach out to someone in your life who might be troubled and might have second thoughts about it, that maybe they're not seeing the light and maybe you can help them with their faith or with their politics or with their family. All things that Charlie fought for on a daily basis, but not just for each individual, but for us as a collective. He was a believer in this country. He was a believer in our founding documents. He was a believer in the Bible, in Jesus Christ. And that's what drove him to go to campuses like this, where he knew there was a risk. He knew it wasn't entirely safe, but he believed that he was going with God and he had a message. And he was uniquely positioned to be able to deliver that message to people who needed it most, the people who had been targeted by the left-wing establishment that's co-opted and taken advantage of our university system and the government largesse that funds it. To be able to condition young Americans to not support our founding documents, not support Judeo-Christian biblical values, but to fight against it. When we come back in the next hour, I'll play some more demonic clips from what we're up against in the establishment media, the people who couldn't get to a microphone or a camera fast enough to tell you why Charlie may have had this coming. He didn't have anything coming. Charlie was a close friend and a very good person who helped me more times than I can count. So much of the work that I've done was either with Charlie or because of Charlie, and there are dozens, if not hundreds, of people who are the top of the conservative pyramid in terms of influence, and thousands, if not millions of more, who were growing up with Charlie as their voice. We shouldn't have had that taken from us. And what we do next is going to be a big test for all of us. September 10th, 2025 is the day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated while he was speaking to young students on University of Utah campus, Utah Valley University to be precise, about Judeo-Christian values, about American values, about the Constitution, about science, going against some of the anti-science rhetoric that's taken hold of our media in recent years, standing for what's good against what's evil and demonic. I've known Charlie for a long time. He was a friend of mine since he was a teenager. I tried to hire him at Breitbart News, but he'd started Turning Point and had just gotten just a little bit bigger than he wanted to see it through. He wanted to see where this thing could go. My name's Alex Marlow, by the way, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, host of the Alex Marlow Show on the Salem Podcast Network. Charlie was a force of nature, and he became a giant in our movement in two ways. He wasn't just maybe the next Rush Limbaugh and the airwaves, but he was also maybe the next NRA or one of the biggest political organizations because of the power of Turning Point, that level of activism. He was able to mobilize so many people, so much money, so much enthusiasm. His legacy is so vast, it's so wide, and he was just getting started, and who knows what he would have done next. He certainly would have spoke to all of you. He would have spoke to you about all these values that make America great, these biblical principles that he relied on in his life, propelled him to get married and start a family, 2 children. He was a tireless worker. I say this as someone with a bit of a workaholic streak. I marveled at Charlie's ability to work. And I've been close with him to the point where I'm on a show once a week. I have some text groups with him. And in these text groups, there was concern about this event. There was concern that some of the left-wing radicals were getting increasingly agitated, increasingly violent. And we've seen the evidence since Butler of last year, where the media was so quick to act as though it was worth dismissing. They ran so quickly to the side of the people who had committed these heinous acts that had made headlines recently in North Carolina and in Minnesota to portray the attacker as the victim. We always knew that wasn't the case. We always knew that Trump's line that they're not just coming after me, they're coming after you, I just happen to be in the way, was the time where you should take him literally. It was the time where you have to look at what President Trump had to say, is that they did want to come after all of us. The radical left lives by a credo that by any means necessary, and that includes violence. They'd prefer to win the ballot box, but if they can't do that, they'll use lawfare, they'll use violence, they'll use whatever they can to get around the system, to get around our laws and our order. They hate law and order on the left. They hate free speech. They want to encroach upon it. And when you see someone who's become as powerful as Charlie simply by using his voice and his energy to get to where he is, that he was too deep of a threat to them. And had been ramping up to this just this week, talking about on CNN, where they were broadcasting that Charlie should be ashamed of himself for telling truths about what happened in North Carolina. I say this from a point of deep sadness. And when I go off the air, I'll be a different person. I'll feel the emotions of a human being, of someone who lost a friend and a father. Someone who was like a brother to me in this movement. But for now, I want to use this platform, use the Hugh Hewitt Show today to talk to you about where we go from here, which is a invigorated fight against the left. An invigorated fight for free speech, for law and order, and to cement some of the political gains that Charlie Kirk was an integral part of. And to perhaps walk back from some of this vicious hatred, demonic hatred, that we've been seeing permeate left-wing politics and our establishment media at an increasingly irrational level. One of the people who've documented this better than anyone is Curtis Houck, Media Research Center, who is just a absolute maven at this stuff. He is just at newsbusters.org, just the best online at clipping what's going on. And Curtis, it's nice to meet you. We haven't met before, but you're someone I definitely wanted to talk to today because you've had the front row seat. You're on the stage. You get the backstage pass of left-wing hatred that is, I think, ramped up to this moment. You've chronicled it better than anyone. Speak in broad terms about the arc, what you've been seeing recently, specifically with regards to Charlie. And then we got a few choice clips that I think that you were kind enough to share with us on your X feed. But the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, Alex. Fortunate to be with you. But yes, big fan of yours as well, and of Charlie's. We at the Media Research Center, this is our first on-camera appearance by anybody here, so on behalf of the MRC, we express our condolences to Charlie and his family. The political rhetoric in this country has gone completely out of control, and it's been astounding to see, just on CNN, the network that I've been watching for the last few hours, them try to put the toothpaste back in the tube. They're trying to roll this back in and try to say that we cannot go on. We cannot function this way as a country. Brian Stelter admirably said, quote, we can only live in a democracy if we settle our disagreements with words. And it's disturbing because it cuts to the core of how the American democracy functions. Well, if you look at CNN's coverage just 24 hours ago, this week, you brought up Van Jones's comments from CNN and that discussion on Abby Phillips' show about Charlie Kirk and the Charlotte coverage as well. Charlotte coverage has been a great instructive example, I should say, is the more appropriate word, for how the media has viewed and acted when it comes to right and wrong. Everything just seems to be completely out of whack. This story, prior to today, was an example of how unmoored they are from reality about what is right and what is wrong, about law and order, that no, the person we should be feeling bad for is the suspect, the alleged murderer of this Ukrainian refugee. That is where we are with an upside down news media. You have MSNBC saying all kinds of things that we can get into. It is hard to say where we go from here, but the side that has been running around with the Choose Civility bumper stickers and are still suggesting that Sarah Palin was behind the shooting of Gabby Giffords in 2011 need to take a seat. They need atonement here.
And yet they couldn't help themselves. They were immediately out there. There's one clip I played and several others I haven't played yet. Let's play cut 21. This is Matthew Dowd on MSNBC.
Which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Turning Point USA has confirmed that he was shot. And there are a number of
they want to get him in there, Curtis, because they know what he's saying is that Charlie invited this on himself. It somehow gets worse. This is from, I think, the same show, Katie Tur, MSNBC. Cut 22, please.
We're showing, by the way, our affiliate in Utah and the aftermath of this shooting. You could see people running away pretty quickly, as you would imagine they would do at gunshots. The FBI director, Kash Patel, has weighed in on this. He just tweeted the following: "We're closely monitoring reports of the tragic shooting involving Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University. Our thoughts are with Charlie, his loved ones, and everyone affected. Agents will be on the scene quickly, and the FBI stands in full support of the ongoing response and the investigation." Charlie Kirk is a divisive figure, polarizing, lightning rod, whatever term you want to use. Why?
Well, he's one of MAGA's most prominent voices online. He hosts a near daily podcast. He opines on almost everything. He's been very closely aligned with the president since his initial run for office in 2015, 2016. And his ties to Trump really elevated his own brand. He was really quite young as an activist when the president launched his initial campaign. And he has kind of ridden along with MAGA since 2016 and built up a massive, massive brand of his own. His group has brought in tons and tons of money.
In which a shooting like...
Let's pause it there, but we know that they're saying that he's divisive. They immediately go to it's Charlie's fault, and then they're going to suggest that he was maybe shot by a supporter. I'm Alex Marlow in for Hugh Hewitt today on my most devastating day since I've been on the airwaves. Hard to put into words the tragedy, losing Charlie Kirk, one of the young leaders of our time at the hands of an assassin. We'll learn more about this individual eventually, but we're told that he's not even in custody yet. So presumably we'll see. Who knows? Maybe it'll be a pronoun issue. You never know. You can say that, right, at this point? Curtis Houck is with me from Newsbusters. He does an incredible job documenting the insanity that is left-wing cable news, which has somehow just degenerated even more over recent years, since I believe they're probably lost all their credibility 3, 4, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, and still continue to get worse. Do we have the rest of that clip teed up there, Dwayne? Can we play the continuation of the clip played before the break? Do that, 22.
We're showing, by the way...
He opines on almost everything. He's been very closely aligned with the president since his initial run for office in 2015, 2016, and his ties to Trump really elevated his own brand. He was really quite young as an activist when the president launched his initial campaign, and he has kind of ridden along with MAGA since 2016 and built up a massive, massive brand of his own. His group has brought in tons and tons of money.
In which a shooting like this happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Curtis, your thoughts?
It's unbelievable what we've been
I got to tell you,
here
Curtis, I won't let you roll. But I just want to there are audible gasps in the studio, like people hearing that, people who are hardened newsmen are just like cannot believe it that was said immediately in the aftermath. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. I mean, it is unbelievable that this happened. That was said. This was allowed to be said. Matthew Dowd said, "I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which often then lead to hateful actions." Just last night, Senator Chris Murphy was speaking to a liberal podcast interviewer and said, "We're in a war right now to save this country. And so you have to be willing to do what is necessary in order to save the country." We on the right, we enjoy vigorous debate. It's why Charlie, despite all of the success he had, Charlie didn't need to be still going on these college campus tours.
That's right.
But yet he did because he relished it and he loved it. And it's what makes America different in a good way than other countries, that we have a robust set of values and ideologies where we can go back and forth and talk about everything from budgets to schools to family. But we've reached a point where people are willing to, they see the other side is not just wrong, but the enemy. And too often we've seen here, I'd be remiss if I also should just point out this is World Suicide Prevention Day. And yes, there are serious mental health crises in this country, but that does not excuse the kind of violence that we are seeing on the American streets. Charlie tweeted just yesterday a screen cap of the Ukrainian refugee after she'd been stabbed and said, "America will never be the same."
Yes.
I saw that during the break, and it stopped me in my tracks because it's so haunting. And Charlie's
It haunts you
assassination.
because it feels like,
America
Curtis,
will have the same.
we were moving towards something like this. And I just coincidentally I just finished reading Selena Zito's book on Butler and how narrowly it was such a miracle, clearly divine intervention, that we avoided an assassination then. It's the country's rhetoric has just gotten so much worse, and yet these conglomerates continue to put people in the air like this. Let's play this cut 23, please, guys, that Curtis found.
Because as we were just talking about a moment ago with Alan, after one of the Doge employees was allegedly attacked in Washington, D.C., that's what Donald Trump used as justification to send in federal troops into Washington, D.C. to get things under control. The carjacking situation, he used that. And I know it's hard to predict the future, Mark, but you can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
I must admit, I'm at a loss to guess as to what happens next. But
well, wouldn't that be their right when there's people getting assassinated while they're debating in a country that allegedly champions free speech, Curtis?
CNN was doing the same thing. Laura Coates was wondering, what is the death of this lightning rod going to do in terms of the president's desire to crack down on crime? We've spent decades listening to the left talk about how we can never let a crisis go to waste. Rahm Emanuel made that phrase famous. So, yeah, I think we certainly do have a right, given the last few years, this era that we are living through, of political violence, going back to the Family Research Council, the Steve Scalise shooting.
That's correct.
We've reached a point where, this person's not just wrong about healthcare. They're going to kill you. They want you dead. We just celebrated 25 years at Newsbusters, and Ed Schultz clip came up from the late 2000s in which he said that about Republicans. Rachel Maddow said that about Republicans as well. And sure enough, a viewer of hers nearly murdered the Republican baseball team in 2017.
Right. That's right.
These things have consequences. Yep. And yet again, the media do not say we got this wrong. They're saying we need to be better, but they're not saying we've also done wrong and we want to do better. I think they would get a modicum, like a sliver of support from some Americans if they said, we are sorry, we want to do better. Because, we never thought that this would happen. We didn't mean it. Well, certainly some people took that to the unfortunate logical conclusion.
Yeah, we always knew someone would. We always knew. And so yet they will act like there's some other explanation for what this is. We always knew a day like this was going to happen. It was inevitable given the stuff that you report on a daily basis. So Curtis, I'm left with for you to go in your crystal brain. What is your prediction? Can they rein this in? Can they have balance? Can there be a calm, or does there have to be this cognitive dissonance where the left thinks that anything that could benefit Trump must be wrong, and they continue to attack everything he stands for, even law and order?
Well, I think one of two things. One, there's a chance that the individual journalists could speak up and it could become a groundswell. But I think, unfortunately, the more likely scenario is while individual journalists may try to speak up, even Brian Stelter trying to set a kind of calm tone about things, their base is too energized at this point to be in any sort of mood to calm down in terms of how they view the other side. So I think even if the media may decide, even individual outlets may decide our tone needs to change, it's all about the Democratic base. Can they convince their runaway base to rein it in terms of how they view the other side? And that part have even less even less of a probability than the media turning it around.
Yeah, and this is where I think we need to be precise here as a conservative movement. We need to be tough, we need to be fighters, but we need to lean against law and order. We need to lean into the Constitution. We need to lean into restoring justice, holding people to account, and doing it honestly and fearlessly, and not going outside of rules and norms of the past, as we've seen the left do in these moments. They've used this to try to expand their powers. They've used this to try to be retributive. I think here all we need is simple law and order. Hold the bad guys accountable, keep them in prison when they commit violence, and protect our cities, protect our campuses. And there needs to be a referendum on some of these campuses. Curtis, I can't thank you enough for your time here. Curtis Houck, managing editor for Newsbusters, which is just invaluable, and I've relied on it just about every day at Breitbart News over the years. And Curtis does a terrific job on X, the Everything app. If you're not following there, you are missing on cutting edge news. There's still a lot to come on the show today. We are honoring our friend Charlie Kirk, but we're also inspired by him. We're inspired by his willingness to fight for American values on the campuses and on the airwaves. On this devastating and historic day, my dear friend Charlie Kirk has been assassinated in Utah while specifically debating a group of people who needed to hear his message. Sarah Bedford now. Sorry, Sarah. Congratulations. I know you moved on with your life. Sarah Bedford is with me, investigative editor at the Washington Examiner, and also is one of my colleagues on the National Journalism Center's Board of Governors there. Sarah, I want to get your reporting on this because you've been tracking this as a reporter. But first, just as a young woman who has a family who is, I think, someone who Charlie was trying to target, I think, better than a lot of the younger online conservatives. I think he really did have a soft spot for women and for families, and he really did try to reach young women in particular. And I think that was another powerful and overlooked attribute that Charlie had.
Right. I mean, I feel that in a lot of ways, Charlie Kirk has just sort of always been a presence in my sort of political and professional life. We were in the same, I don't know if you'd call it grade, but rising class through college. And I remember, when I went into college as a liberal, Turning Point USA was one of my first encounters with conservatism. And so many people in my age group have similar stories to tell about how Charlie Kirk really exposed millions of young people to conservatism in a fresh light for the first time. And, watching his evolution into one of the most influential figures in the movement, someone who had the ear of the President of the United States, and not only built this really influential organization, but by his life and example was a wonderful role model for young people. It's just really shocking and devastating that we're even having the conversation that we are today.
It is shocking. It is devastating. And I think that your point about how he was a role model really does speak to me. It wasn't just that he was a great activist or a great broadcaster or a husband. He was all those things. And he tried to bring that spirit to people and inspire people that you can do things, that you can go out there, and if you work hard enough and you commune with God and your faith and your founding principles and founding documents, then you can build a deeply successful life in this country. But his bravery is one of the reasons why he was vulnerable. And that is something that is truly devastating and why we need to respond, I think, as a movement with strength, with vigor. So how do you think the conservative media landscape changes? How do you think that we can continue to reach people in this aftermath? What's changed now?
Well, I think, like you said, the movement is going to be really rocked by this. There's going to be a culture of fear around replicating the types of things that Charlie Kirk was doing. There's going to be this sense of fear among activists. Am I safe anymore doing the work that I'm doing? That was probably one of the goals of the monster who did this, was to silence this movement and strike fear into the hearts of people who agree with Charlie Kirk, who would promote his message. And so, bravery is an important ingredient in where the movement goes from here, and not letting this absolutely horrific tragedy deter the types of things Charlie Kirk was doing. I mean, he was literally just debating people who didn't agree with him and bringing that message into places that wasn't necessarily friendly territory. That's something that he sort of pioneered, and it's important work to keep doing.
You had an important tweet at Sarah with an H, C Bedford, online on the X, the app for everything. You noted that he was a rock star for young conservatives. This is where, if I'm reluctant to indulge any fear I've got about where we go forward, but he was a deep conduit for important values to younger people who the rest of the right, had not reached as successfully.
That's right. I think, like I was speaking to my own experience, sort of having been involved with Turning Point USA and carrying the things that I learned from that into my adult professional life. There are a lot of people who really do feel like they know Charlie Kirk, like they grew up with Charlie Kirk. They owe their values, their worldview in some part to Charlie Kirk. He had millions and millions of listeners to his podcast, people who hung on his every Instagram story, every tweet. There are millions of people who are going to feel this loss in, I think, a really devastating personal way. They feel like they've lost a mentor, a friend. it's much bigger than just the loss of a pundit. It's the loss of a movement leader, and that's going to inspire, I think, a much bigger reaction than we're probably even realizing right now.
You reminded me of a moment where Charlie said to me when he was debating something, and it was a private chat, but I think he'd like it if I shared, that he exclaimed at one point, "I'm trying to lead a movement." And that was how he thought of himself, and that's what he'd earned over a very brief time on this planet. It's an incredible legacy that we must continue today. Sarah Bedford, thank you very much. I have the responsibility of honoring my friend Charlie Kirk today, who I've known since he was a teenager when he got to start writing at Breitbart News. And we are celebrating his life, and we are going to fearlessly move forward and fight and defend the things that he held dear and that we all hold dear. And it's something that is particularly devastating to me because I knew him as as a man and a father, as well as an activist and a leader. And not any more of you will get that opportunity and that privilege that I had. But I'll tell you, his message was resonant. He created all of that content over all that time to make sure that he would have a legacy, and it's on us to preserve it. And I'm very optimistic that we will. My colleague Stacey Washington is on with me. Stacey, I want to get your overall take, and I'm going to share with you how our colleagues on the left are dealing with this devastating day in American history. But first of all, your reflections.
Well, Alex, I was just sitting here in my studio, this, kind of normal afternoon stuff. And I have some time between, the TV show and the radio show. And I got a notification that he'd been shot. I went to X immediately. I saw that the video showed him being shot. And I thought, Lord, please let it just be a little graze. And I started praying. And then my phone was blowing up, lots of different groups that I'm in talking about him being shot. And I watched the video again, and I was just sitting there, and I said, I was like, Lord, I'm trusting you. He's going to be okay. And so I just kept praying, and I posted, I'm praying for Charlie Kirk. And then about 35, 40 minutes later, I see someone's posted this video, and someone else sent me that and sent me the video of him. It's a close up of the gunshot wound, and I burst into tears. And I'm not usually prone to doing that, but I felt right then and there that it was going to be very difficult for him to recover. And I prayed again. And then I went back online, and I was, going from host to host, site to site, just trying to see what the latest was. And then I saw that he'd passed away. And I was thinking about, why would he be killed? Why would the Lord allow him to go? And it was the same questions I had when the children were shot in Minnesota. They're in prayer at Mass, and they're gunned down, two of them. And the rest of them are injured, some of them critically. Some adults are killed. And I kept feeling like the Lord is saying, it's free will. Human beings have free will. We're not automatons. We are able to do things that are not God's will, but at the end, his providential will succeed, and he will take every bad thing and turn it for our good. And I thought about Charlie. The first time I ever met him in person, we were on a panel together in 2016 at the leadership program of the Rockies in Colorado. And it's this gorgeous hotel. It's a hotel like no other. And there's Charlie Kirk just smiling and waiting, for his opportunity to speak. I go over and introduce myself, and he was so nice. And, we took our turn speaking. And then after that, he rushed off because he had another place to be. And then I watched him rise meteorically from 2016. He was already on an upward trajectory, but he just became such a fixture in everything that we're doing. And then I joined Salem News Channel. Good friend Andrew Wilkow brought me on here and to do a 1-hour TV program. And I was like, wow, I'm on the same network as Charlie Kirk. And then he put the book out, and he came on the show to talk about that on the radio show. And he was so nice. He's just, every time I've ever seen him, he's been so genuine and kind. And I've watched his wife as well, the social media account, the two babies coming along. Yes. And, I have college age kids. So he's a baby to me. He's at the baby stage of life where he's just gotten married. He just has 2 children of his own, and everything's so fresh and new and just starting. And so this is a senseless tragedy. But I think we have to remember the way that Charlie Kirk lived. Galatians 1:10 says, am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. And Proverbs 29:25 says, fear of man will prove to be a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe. And as I've been praying this afternoon about this tragedy, Alex, I hear the voice of the Lord saying that Charlie is with the great cloud of witnesses. He has met Jesus Christ face to face. His work is finished. We'll never know why God chose to take him now, to allow him to go now. but we will get to meet him again in heaven when we meet our reward. So the answer to this is for us to continue to fight. And the person who did the shooting has to be made an example of. We must be much tougher on crime, or else they'll continue to pick off their targets, their enemies. The effective in the movement will be picked off because the left is they're going haywire. They failed. And Kamala
I want to
Harris
cut
is
in
the-
there, Stacey, because I
Yeah.
got to share. This is an opportunity to bring up how the left is reacting. This is J.B. Pritzker. This is before the announcement that Charlie died, but this is the person who could be the Democrat nominee for president in a couple years. It's a contrast what Stacey just said and the eloquence there with this. Cut 24, please.
My sympathy to Charlie Kirk's family and to Charlie Kirk, who obviously has, become a target for somebody. I don't know whether it's political violence because I don't know who did it. I know they seem to have somebody in custody. But I will say that political violence, unfortunately, has been ratcheting up in this country. We saw the shootings, the killings in Minnesota. We've seen other political violence occur in other states. And I would just say it's got to stop. And I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it. We've seen the January 6th rioters who clearly, have...
That's good. We got what we came for. So it's Donald Trump's fault. It's the J6 Capitol rioters, most of whom peacefully just walked in the Capitol. Only one person died. Only one gunshot was shot that day. It was by a law enforcement officer at Ashley Babbitt. That's it. But that's what inspired. We don't even know who the guy is. He's still on the run. We don't know if he's headed to someone else's house next. And this is the governor of Illinois who's a standard bearer for the Democrat Party, Stacey.
Well, he's always been a bit of a buffoon, J.B. Pritzker. We wouldn't even know who he was if he wasn't born into money. So, out of the mouths of fools, we will hear unbelievable silliness. But Alex, when you talk about that, I made the mistake of clicking on the hashtag he's dead right after Fox News confirmed. And I saw, all the different sites are confirming, Salem News Channel. And what I saw there is a few people are saying he's dead. I can't believe it. I'm so sorry for his family. And the others are celebrating, posting rainbows, posting pictures of Kamala Harris. And I just advise people on my Twitter feed, don't click on the hashtag because you'll only see filth and degradation there. And that's the problem. The left has normalized violence. They're actually normalizing it by fighting for it right now.
Stacey Washington, StaceyOnTheRight.com for all of her latest. She's on this station right now on a normal news day on Salem Podcast Network or on the Salem TV Network, Salem News Channel is what it's called, and on Sirius XM where I was on for many years. She's a great colleague and friend, and glad to have her insight today. I want to say thank you to Dwayne and Adam and Harley who make the show possible here, and of course Hugh Hewitt for having me fill in. I was thinking, should I make a snarky comment? Should I say thank you, Hugh, or should I say damn you, Hugh, for having me fill in today? I think I was happy that I was on the air. It's one of the worst days of my life on a personal level. Charlie Kirk wasn't just an effective leader. He wasn't just a giant in the conservative movement, but he was a friend of mine, and he's a father, and there'll be children who won't grow up without a dad, and that's because of the hatred that people who oppose Charlie, American values, conservative values, Judeo-Christian values, free speech itself, the idea of debate, the idea that we should be able to air out our differences in the battlefield of ideas, as opposed to on a battlefield of guns and violence, people who oppose that birthright that we have as Americans. That's who's responsible for this. And we'll eventually learn who the person is, and hopefully they're brought to justice. I hope it's humiliating and horrific for all of them, but we know it's beyond one person. We know that this is a culture that's been activated by the left. It's been coddled. It's been encouraged. Just recently, we've seen the reaction to the violence in Charlotte to suggest that the murderer on the Charlotte transit, suggesting the murderer was actually the victim. Gavin Newsom mocking children praying while they got murdered in Minnesota. We had Tim Walz yucking it up by wishing that Donald Trump would die. Those are the leaders of the Democrat Party and the left in this country, and there's a demonic force that is running through them. I've shared with you clips earlier in the show on Matthew Dowd on MSNBC suggesting that Charlie asked for this with his rhetoric. J.B. Pritzker saying it's because of January the 6th. They say this without fear because they know this is what is elevated, and this is beneath us as a people. It's beneath us as Americans. And what Charlie stood for, what Charlie would have wanted, was an elevated life, a life that is elevated in the eyes of God, elevated in terms of living up to America's founding principles, which we've never quite hit, but we've come close and we can come closer. But this moment needs to be unifying. We're in a civil war in this country of ideas, and it needs to remain in the realm of ideas. And people on the left continue to take strides to take it out of the realm of ideas and put it into the realm of physical violence. We cannot let them. Law and order must bring these people to justice, and we must shut down violence against conservatives and Christians in this country. We need to be able to call it by its name, identify it, bring people to justice, hold them accountable. And then we can have a full airing of the values that Charlie preached to so many and try to reach the people that Charlie had reached and beyond and beyond and beyond. That's got to be the message today. I feel very grateful to Phil Boyce at Salem and to all of the people on Charlie's amazing team and on Hugh Hewitt's amazing team for giving me that right and that privilege. I'm Alex Marlow, signing off on a devastating day for America, but we will remain hopeful and vigilant, but also we will fight, fight, fight. Thank you.